Imagine you finally did it. After months of watching every dollar, you managed to set aside your first $1,000 in savings. $1,000 sitting right there in your account, money that isn't already earmarked for rent, groceries, or that credit card balance you keep pretending doesn't exist. You stare at that number, and honestly, it looks almost embarrassing. $1,000. That's maybe 2 weeks of rent in most cities, a set of replacement tires on a used Honda Civic, and a basic oil change. The figure just sits there, seeming way too small to mean anything. Your brain immediately starts running the numbers on how little that actually represents. Your coworker just drove home in a brand new car. Your college friend is shopping for flights to Europe. And here you are throwing a quiet little celebration over 4 digits like you just hit the jackpot. So, what do most people do? They spend it. They talk themselves into believing $1,000 is too insignificant to shift their future. So why not enjoy it today? A short trip somewhere fun, a phone upgrade, that piece of furniture they've been eyeing for months. They tell themselves the real saving starts later, once they land a higher-paying role, once expenses calm down, once life stops being so relentlessly expensive. And just like that, the $1,000 evaporates. It's like it was never there. But somewhere else, there's another person who received that same $1,000 and made a completely different choice. 2 decades later, that single decision put them on a path to becoming a millionaire, while the first person is still trying to figure out how to scrape together their next $1,000. My name is Nora, and I spend an almost unhealthy amount of time studying the invisible financial turning points that separate people who genuinely build wealth from people who earn decent money their whole lives and never get ahead. If you feel like you're always hitting reset financially, or you've been told saving matters but can't understand why it would when the numbers feel so tiny, make sure you subscribe and drop a like on this video if it gives you something real to think about. Here's the thing about money that almost nobody actually tells you, and it might be the single most important insight you ever absorb when it comes to building real wealth. The very first $1,000 you manage to save carries more mathematical power than the following $10,000 you save after it. That sounds completely illogical, right? 10,000 is literally 10 times larger. How on earth could the smaller number punch harder? Most people picture wealth building like walking up a staircase. Each dollar is one more step, you keep climbing, eventually you get somewhere. Simple addition. But that mental model is entirely wrong. Money doesn't behave that way. Compound interest certainly doesn't work that way, and your psychology absolutely does not work that way. Your first $1,000 does something no later sum of money can replicate. It converts you from someone with nothing into someone with something. It shatters the zero barrier. And breaking through zero is the single hardest financial move you will ever make in your life. Let me walk you through exactly why. Meet Sofia. Sofia is 28 years old, working in digital marketing, pulling in $55,000 a year. After taxes, her take-home lands around $42,000. That works out to about $3,500 a month. Her rent runs $1,400, car payment $350, insurance, phone plan, utilities, groceries, gas, and all those small subscriptions that pile up quietly. By the time she reaches the end of the month, she has maybe $200 left if she's been careful, sometimes less. Most months, that $200 drifts away on small things. Dinner out, a new workout top, a birthday gift she forgot to budget for. She's just living her life the same way nearly everyone around her does. And at the end of every single month, her savings account reads zero, same as it did last month and the month before that. Here's what Sofia doesn't see, and honestly, what most people never fully grasp. That zero in her savings account isn't just a neutral number, it's a force field. It's a psychological cage. When your savings account reads zero, you're running on pure survival instinct. Your brain cannot genuinely plan for next year. It can barely process next month. Every financial surprise turns into a crisis. The moment your check engine light flickers on, your stomach lurches. When your dog needs an emergency vet visit, you're calculating how close you are to maxing out your credit card. You're trapped in a constant loop of reacting to whatever emergency shows up next, never getting ahead of anything. But something genuinely remarkable happens the second you cross from $0 to $1,000. Options appear. Limited ones, maybe, but options. The panic dissolves. That same check engine light flicks on, and instead of spiraling, you have a plan ready. You can handle it. You can pay cash. The psychological shift that comes with that is enormous. Your entire relationship with money transforms the moment you stop operating in crisis mode and start operating in planning mode. There's actual peer-reviewed research behind this. A study out of Princeton University found that financial stress measurably reduces a person's cognitive function by the equivalent of 13 IQ points. 13 points. That's the margin between scoring as average and scoring as intellectually gifted, or between average and borderline impaired, depending on which direction you move. When money pressure is crushing you, when you genuinely don't know how you'll cover the next emergency, your brain is so consumed with short-term survival that you are physically less capable of thinking long-term. The stress biologically degrades your ability to make sound decisions. Think about what that actually costs you across a lifetime when your brain is running 13 points below its potential. You make terrible financial choices. You take the payday loan charging 400% interest because you're too overwhelmed to explore alternatives. You stay trapped in an underpaying job because you're too stressed and depleted to update your resume and interview. You sign up for a car payment that sounds manageable month to month while completely unable to calculate what the total cost adds up to over 5 years. Those stress-driven decisions alone can drain hundreds of thousands of dollars from your net worth over a lifetime. The person with $1,000 tucked away isn't just sleeping more soundly, they're thinking more clearly during the day. And clear thinking compounds just the way interest does. Your first $1,000 is literally purchasing back your ability to reason well. It lifts the cognitive impairment. It gives your brain room to look past next Tuesday. And that changes the entire trajectory of everything that follows. Let me show you the numbers that make this undeniable. Say Sofia commits to saving that first $1,000. It takes her 5 months of real discipline. 5 months of choosing no, 5 months of setting aside $200 every single pay period without rating the account. It's hard work. It's genuinely boring. And when she finally hits $1,000, it doesn't feel like a milestone because $1,000 still doesn't feel like real money. But look at what actually happened during those 5 months. Sofia proved to herself that she is capable of delaying gratification. She wired a savings habit that simply didn't exist before. She built a working system that functions whether she feels motivated or not. And most critically, she destroyed the zero. Now when her paycheck arrives, she doesn't just see money that will be gone by month's end. She sees money with the potential to grow into something far larger. Her entire relationship with dollars has shifted at a fundamental level. Now, let's say Sofia keeps the momentum going. Her $1,000 emergency reserve is safely set aside. She doesn't stop there. She keeps directing that same $200 every month towards savings. After another 12 months, she's accumulated $3,800 total. Still doesn't sound like life-changing money, but now she can do something different. She can start investing. And here is where the math gets genuinely fascinating, the part most people never discover until the window has mostly closed. That original $1,000 invested in a diversified index fund averaging 8% annually, which is actually below the historical average for major indices, doubles in approximately 9 years, with Sofia never adding another cent. $1,000 becomes $2,000. Then $2,000 becomes $4,000. Then $4,000 becomes $8,000. Over 30 years, that original $1,000 grows into $10,627. $1,000 transformed into more than $10,000 simply by existing and compounding. Let me show you a comparison that will make this land. Person A saves $1,000 at age 25 and never contributes another dollar. Person B waits until age 35, then saves a lump sum of $10,000. Both invest in the same index fund at 8% annually. At retirement, age 65, Person A has $10,627 from their single early $1,000. Person B has $21,725 from their much larger $10,000. Person B put in 10 times more capital, but wound up with only about twice the outcome. That first $1,000 generated a 963% return purely through time. The later $10,000 returned only 117%. This is the proof that your first $1,000 is more powerful than the next 10. The size of the deposit doesn't matter nearly as much as the length of time that deposit has to work. This is precisely why someone who begins investing at 25 with modest amounts outperforms someone who begins at 35 with larger ones. Time beats money. Every time. And your first $1,000 has more time in front of it than any dollar you save from this point forward. Now, I can already hear the pushback. Nora, this sounds great in theory, but I'm barely covering my bills each month. How do I realistically save $1,000? That's the trap in action. That's exactly what we call the poverty premium on this channel. When you're financially stretched, everything costs you more. You can't buy in bulk. You can't lock in discounts by paying your insurance premium annually. You're hemorrhaging money through overdraft fees, late payment charges, and interest on revolving balances. You're being nickeled and dimed from every direction. But here's the honest truth. Saving that first $1,000 is not primarily about the math. The math is just the reward. What you are really doing is demonstrating to yourself that you can do hard things. You are literally reprogramming how your brain thinks about money, and it doesn't have to happen in a sprint. Let me tell you what happened to someone I actually know who went through exactly this. We'll call her Sofia, since that's our example character today, though the real story is from someone close to me who went through this exact journey. She was earning $48,000 a year in 2021 and carrying $17,000 in credit card debt. Every month felt like treading water in a current that kept pulling her backward. She decided that before she tackled anything else, before she mapped out a debt payoff strategy or researched investment accounts, she needed $1,000 sitting in savings, untouchable except for genuine, unavoidable emergencies. She didn't do anything dramatic or extreme. No side hustle launched overnight, no car sold, no moving back in with family. She found $50 per week to redirect. She cut 2 streaming subscriptions she'd forgotten she was even paying for. She started batch cooking on Sunday afternoons instead of buying lunch at work every day. She stopped buying coffee 4 mornings a week and made it at home. $50 per week. Nothing more. 5 months later, she had $1,000. And she told me that the afternoon she hit that number, she sat in her car and cried. Because for the first time in her adult life, she felt like she had actual control over something. What happened next is the part that really gets me. Once she had that $1,000 in place, she didn't drift back to old habits. The system was operational. The habit had rooted. She kept moving $50 a week into savings. When life showed up, brake job on the car, emergency vet bill for her cat, she used the emergency fund and then she methodically rebuilt it. Slowly, that reserve grew from $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000. Then she started investing. Today, 4 years on, she holds $28,000 in investment accounts. She's completely eliminated that $17,000 in credit card debt. She's on a trajectory to hit $300,000 saved by the time she turns 50. All of it tracing back to the single decision to prioritize reaching $1,000 before attempting anything else. Now, I need to be straight with you, because most financial content conveniently glosses over this piece. Those 5 months she spent building that first $1,000 were genuinely uncomfortable. She missed a friend's group trip to Las Vegas. She passed on concerts she really wanted to attend. She ate meal-prepped chicken and rice 4 days a week and grew deeply sick of it. She felt like she was sitting on the sideline while everyone else was out experiencing their lives. There were moments she nearly abandoned the whole plan, moments where she questioned why having $1,000 someday was worth being miserable today. But here's what she eventually realized. Those people who seemed to be living fully, the ones tagging her on social media from vacations, quietly judging her for being too frugal, 3 years later, they were in the exact same financial position, still stretched thin, still stressed, still one unexpected car repair from a real crisis. Meanwhile, she had choices. The temporary discomfort of building that first $1,000 bought her permanent freedom from financial anxiety, and that exchange is worth it, without exception. Here's the real distinction between the first $1,000 and the next $10,000. The first $1,000 rewrites your identity. It reshapes who you are, from someone who has nothing into someone who has something, from someone at the mercy of every circumstance to someone actively constructing a future. The next $10,000 simply expands the pile. Important, absolutely, but it's incremental growth, not transformation. The first $1,000 is the fundamental shift. Another way to frame it, your first $1,000 purchases options. It buys you the ability to say no. No to the predatory payday loan when your car gives out. No to the job that treats you terribly because you can absorb 2 weeks of searching for something better. No to the living situation you've outgrown because you have enough saved for a security deposit somewhere new. $1,000 doesn't hand you financial independence, but it hands you the start of financial agency. And agency is the core dividing line between people who build wealth and people who remain stuck. There's also a compounding psychological effect that never gets talked about. Once you've saved your first $1,000, the second $1,000 arrives faster. Your income didn't increase, life didn't get cheaper, but the distance between $1,000 and $2,000 feels shorter than the distance between 0 and 1,000 because you've already proven the system delivers. You're launching from momentum instead of inertia. The first $1,000 is like rolling a boulder up a steep hill. The second $1,000 is rolling that same boulder on level ground. Still requires effort, but nothing close to as brutal. The entire consumer economy is structured to keep you at zero. The advertising ecosystem, the installment payment plans, the buy now, pay later products, the subscriptions with automatic renewals that slide right past your attention, all of it is engineered to prevent you from accumulating enough money to have real choices, because people with choices are unprofitable customers. They decline the high-interest loan. They stop buying things they don't need just because something went on sale. They leave the jobs that undervalue them because they have a cushion beneath them. Corporations profit most from people who are cornered and desperate. They lose revenue the moment you gain freedom. Your first $1,000 is your declaration that you're done playing that game. You're saying, I'm building something intentional, and I'm willing to accept discomfort now in exchange for freedom later. I want you to do one thing right now. Open your banking app. Figure out how long it would realistically take you to save $1,000 with your current income and current expenses. How much could you genuinely set aside each week? $20? $50? $100? Run the math. At $20 a week, you reach $1,000 in 50 weeks. 1 year. That's it. 12 months from now, your financial life could look completely different. But here's the non-negotiable rule, and I really need you to hear this. That $1,000 cannot be touched for anything that isn't a true emergency. And a true emergency is not a flash sale at your favorite retailer. A true emergency is the transmission going out, the roof developing a serious leak, a job loss, a medical bill you couldn't see coming, real, unavoidable, life-halting events. The emergency fund has exactly one function, keeping you from going into debt when life inevitably throws something at you. And something will come. It always does. Once that $1,000 is secured, once you've crossed the threshold, here's your next move. Keep it completely separate. Don't let it sit in your checking account where you see it every time you check your balance and feel the pull to spend it. Move it into a high-yield savings account at a separate bank if you need to, somewhere that requires a transfer taking a day or two to complete. You want just enough friction to protect it from impulse decisions, but not so much that you genuinely can't reach it during a real crisis. Then you begin constructing the next layer. The second $1,000, then the third. Somewhere in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, you've built enough of a base that you can begin thinking seriously about investing. You can start exploring compound growth, tax-advantaged retirement accounts, and low-cost index funds. You can begin playing the long game for real. But none of that becomes available without the first $1,000. The first $1,000 is the unlock. It is the specific key that opens every single financial door after it. Here's the unfiltered truth that most financial advice quietly skips because it makes people uncomfortable. Building that first $1,000 requires real sacrifice. You are going to say no to things that the people around you are freely saying yes to. You're going to feel like you're missing out, and sometimes that feeling will be sharp. You'll wonder whether any of this is actually worth it. And the whole time, your $1,000 will feel embarrassingly small compared to what it seems like everyone else is doing with their money. Your colleague picks up a new car. Your friend books a trip to Cancun. Your neighbor redoes their kitchen. Meanwhile, you're eating the same dinner you batch cooked 4 days ago, trying to claw your way to a 4-digit savings balance. It feels small. It feels almost pointless at times. But what you are actually doing is laying the foundation that everything else in your financial life will eventually be built on. So here's what I want you to walk away and actually do. Pull up your banking app right now. Navigate to where you can open a new savings account completely separate from your checking. Label it whatever fires you up. Emergency fund, freedom account, future me, whatever works. Set up an automated weekly or monthly transfer. Even $10 a week, even if it feels laughably small. Set it up anyway, because the amount is secondary to building the behavior. You are constructing a habit that will compound into serious wealth over the next 20 years. And when you eventually hit that first $1,000, I want you to genuinely pause and absorb it. Don't rush past it. Don't immediately minimize it by telling yourself it's not that impressive, because that number represents something vastly larger than 4 digits displayed on a screen. It represents control over your own circumstances. It represents options that weren't there before. It represents the concrete evidence that you are building something rather than simply surviving from one month to the next. And once building starts, momentum builds with it. The second 1,000 arrives faster than the first, the third faster than the second. And before you realize what's happening, you're thinking about $10,000, about $50,000, about the inflection point where your money is generating more than your job does. But none of it is reachable without crossing zero first. None of it happens without that first $1,000. The people who genuinely internalize this, who make reaching $1,000 the absolute priority before worrying about sophisticated investment vehicles or paying off low-interest debt or anything else, they're the ones who end up with real financial freedom. The people who skip it, who try to invest before they have an emergency buffer, who finance their lifestyle because $1,000 feels too small to matter, they're the ones who stay stuck, still searching for a starting point, while the first group is already a decade into compound growth. Your first $1,000 is more powerful than the next $10,000 because it is the transformation from trapped to free, from reacting to planning, from hoping it somehow works out to knowing with certainty that you'll be okay. That first $1,000 is the foundation everything else gets built on, and you can begin building it today.